What this is this was put together by large corporations, and if passed in the ballot in November of 2024, this will increase all of the requirements on Prop 218 and other things. So basically with this, what will likely happen is that public agencies will have to conduct a rate study every year, and the board will have to approve new rates every year. And then also one thing is that it'll focus on within the rate studies, it'll focus on what is important to districts, and basically you have to go through what is needed versus what is wanted in your budget, in your line items, and you would have to justify every single line item versus which is and state whether it's a need or a want. So
I kind of like that.
it would be a lot of work. Like I said, it would be something where most likely public agencies will have to go through a rate study every single year. The rates would have to be approved every year. So CSDA is asking special districts to oppose this through a resolution, which is attached here. The one local entity that has already taken an opposition stance with the resolution is Murphy Sanitary District, but he's trying to get as many special districts in the area to back this one and oppose it.
MSD approved it?
The opposition, yes.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Just what's pretty obvious here is just how vague some of these statements are. And I mean, who's the agency that's going to determine if there's clear and convincing evidence for the needs of services?
Correct.
One of the problems is it probably mostly get resolved through litigation.
What's
And
that?
it'll probably mostly get resolved through litigation. There won't be any single.
So
regulatory agency.
in addition to the extra burden of rate study,
Right.
5 times more often than we have currently budgeted for it, I assume the workload is going to be the same.
Right, plus constantly having to.
I mean, I think we'll have to change our whole, when we do our project list, we'll be having to do a budget at the same time every year.
It's really, it's micromanagement by ballot initiative.
Well, and
And
what
it's-
happens if we have, a disaster or we get a grant, want to change one of our project lists, how are we going to account for that?
Yes, and the other big question is, can a special district or public entity save and, have reserve funds or save for a project that's planned to be implemented in the next 2 to 5 years?
Wasn't there already a limit on the reserve fund? I mean, didn't we have to kind of separate things for, and make the project specific?
It depends on the source of the funding and the type of reserve, but yeah, and all of that is transparent. That's the other thing, is it's not that agencies are trying to hide anything. We go through very transparent processes every year already. And the same, all of our reserves funds as well. This would just be a really onerous burden in addition to what we already have to do.
Excuse me, who again initiated this? And
So it's the California Business Roundtable, and those are large corporations.
Which they certainly don't want this burden on themselves. Right?
Correct.
No, they don't, but they're, yeah, it's hard to even understand why anybody would support it.
Well, I know it's me. I like the idea of holding districts and people like CCWD accountable. I said I kind of like that you have to prove what's a.
Well, I know,
need and a want.
yeah, you said that.
However, there are too many unknowns, how do they enforce it? Who's doing that? So I'm okay to.
The other item is that within the ballot initiative, it says that fees from public entities must be, quote, reasonable, but that
Reasonable.
definition is not defined. So there's a lot that's written in this initiative. It's very vague, and there's it's really hard to understand what.
This isn't supposed to be on until 2024, so could there be a lot of changes coming up? Will they see these oppositions before and try and make changes to the initiative prior to going to vote, or?
Well, this is a ballot.
Yeah,
initiative.
once the ballot initiative is certified, it can't change after that. It's my-
So
So it
what
doesn't
happens-
go to the vote?
No, it goes.
It's
to the-
It'll be
going.
on the
It'll,
ballot. It won't
it'll be on the ballot.
It won't be our legislature, it'll be
Right.
a ballot, but what's happened with all of these initiatives, and I've said this at our legal affairs meeting, you know, it's just been hijacked by corporations that can take advantage of it. I mean, they're paying people to go out there and sit up in front of the grocery store, and they give it a clever name that almost nobody would look into this,
Mhm.
and they won't even understand, you know, I mean, you know, who is gonna be the determining factor here? You know, it's gonna be a judge and a jury and the taxpayers? Is it gonna be like you know, like, when we have a spill and the fishing and all the fishing groups sue us to get legal fees?
Mhm.
You know, I see it going down that track, you know? So, I mean, I absolutely think we should oppose this. I think that there's, plenty, I mean, there's plenty of checks and balances in the Prop 218 process. I would rather
Is
have
that
our
a
voters
motion?
making a determination than a judge.
Right.
So, or than our ratepayers making a determination of a rate.
I would like to weigh in on this a little bit, but to me, that element in the Prop 218 legislation that says clearly that you can't charge more than it's going to cost, but then the other side of that sword is you can't charge less than it's going to cost. So to me, that's the litmus test for anything that we approve. Why is this needed? I'm glad that CSDA is CSDA taking the leadership statewide on this, or is Aqua getting involved in
Aqua will
it?
be involved as well, but I think I think CSDA is ahead of where Aqua is on it right now. There's a lot of other legislative priorities for Aqua, but I'm sure they'll be involved as well.
Okay, well, if we put this to our vote and approve sending a letter of opposition, where is it going to be brought to anybody's attention that the Calaveras County Water District is opposed to this?
We'll let all of those organizations know. We'll probably be a part of coalitions that are going to oppose this as well. And we'll keep the board informed on that.
So legal affairs will hear what
Yes.
transpires as a
Yeah.
result of this.
Yeah, I'm sure it will gain more and more attention as it gets closer.
Okay, do we have any public comment on this?
Is there anybody, there was a guy, Mike, that I spoke to, a couple days ago. I mean, is he online? Do you have any public comment, or nobody has public comment?
Mr. Copeland, I am glad to see you here today. We're about to make a motion on this item on the agenda to oppose this Taxpayer Protection Government Accountability Act that's proposing to make it necessary for any public agency to have rate hearings every year instead of every 5 years. And did you look at this agenda item?
I had listened to you on it.
Okay.
It is it doesn't appeal to me.
Okay, so, all right, if there's no further public comment, no more board, entertain a motion on this item?
I'll move for acceptance.
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded to approve the creation of what are we doing here? We're having a resolution opposing the ballot initiative. And this is resolution number 23, what? 2309. Could we call the roll on this?
Director Cicada,
Yes.
Director Davidson,
Yes.
Director Underhill,
Yes.
Director Thomas.
Yes. All right. Moving on to 4B. But Ralph, I'm curious about, you were listening to our proceedings on the way in here. Is that you had cell service all the way here, or what?
Yeah, I got stuck at CBS and I came down I got it.
Oh. Okay, so we,
And, listen to you on my.
holy cow, that's,
Microsoft.
yeah. Okay, well, that's a very interesting thing. Okay, 4B is discussion and action regarding district position on Assembly Bill 338. This is considering prevailing wage for fuel managements, and Jessica is going to tell us all about this as well.
So this one is exactly the same. We've found out it's the same language as AB 1717, which you all took an opposed position on last year. This one is focusing on expanding the definition of public works to include fuel reduction work. And this would increase the cost of fire mitigation for CCWD and other entities. This bill, AB 1717, was passed by the Senate and Assembly last year, but it was vetoed by Governor Newsom. That was in part because of the work from CCWD and other water agencies who took an opposition stance, wrote letters to Governor Newsom, and he did veto the bill. The author did reintroduce the same exact bill, now known as AB 338. We would just like to once again have the board take an opposed position on this one.
Well, if I can jump in here, first of all, I don't understand a person's motivation to submit a bill. He gets vetoed and he submits the same thing without changing the language. That seems odd to me, but. Anyway.
He's hoping nobody would read it, I guess.
A
new number,
But I
right.
think the thought is that, they reintroduced it this way, but it will change. It will be amended to address some of the concerns that were raised in the governor's veto message and by other state agencies, not just water agencies, but there were state agencies that had a lot of concerns with this bill. From my perspective, it's just bad policy. And so the good news, I think, is the coalition that ended up forming around AB 1717 last year is already up and running again. So the goal is to for the opposition to start much earlier in the process than it did last year, and create hopefully some momentum around opposing this bill.
The state is trying to act like they're in support and on board with, forest management. It's bills like this that, clearly show that they're not really interested in it. I mean, is the opposition or the opposition groups coming up with any, hard figures that will say, okay, labor is 60% of the budget for these forest thinning projects, and
Yeah.
therefore, if the money stays the same, we will reduce forest thinning by 50%.
Yep, that's a big part of the argument. We actually got some information from Richard Sykes at Ummer last year to provide their information on this. So there's, I think it will be even better with more time this year and starting from a much more advanced place than where we were starting from last summer. So I think
Well,
we'll have.
I'd even like to see some of the projects that we have out there. I mean, what happens to the projects that we have under contract?
So if it's already under contract, it's a good question. I don't know. Well, I can get back to you on
It'd be
that.
great to see an overlay of, we know what the labor cost is. It'd be great to see an overlay of one of our projects at the current rate of
Yeah.
pay, and then another overlay of the project
Right.
at the higher rate of pay.
It's a great question. I suspect that the contract wouldn't be altered retroactively by the legislation, but I'd actually be curious to look into that a little bit more. We'll find out.
So let us know when you find out.
Okay.
Please.
You probably don't have any way of answering this question, but prevailing wage for a worker going out to participate in this forest thinning and fire protection, would it be calculated at the rate of a laborer or a skilled worker? I could see with the prevailing wage rate, the addition of considerations for health coverage and and for retirement. I mean, they don't set up programs for it, but you have to add the equivalency to the paycheck. It could be $150 an hour for a laborer.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you think?
Could be a lot.
Or more? So I. Can you afford that, Bertha?
How does that affect?
Not this month.
You know how we have, you know, inmates or whatever they're called that come and do the work for the state and whatnot. So if these folks get paid prevailing wages?
No.
No, they would be, well, I mean, first of all, we don't have very many of those crews left anymore, but no, they wouldn't be subject to.
Okay, any more board comments? How about public comments? All right,
I'll move for acceptance.
I'll second.
okay, it's been moved and seconded that we,
No resolution.
no resolution?
There's no resolution for that one?
We don't need a resolution for this
Okay.
one.
Okay, but we,
Or
a
still-
minute entry, okay. So would you pull the board on this?
Director Cicada,
Yes.
Director Davidson,
Yes.
Director Underhill,
Yes.
Director Thomas.
Yes, this item passes. Okay, going on to 4C. This is a discussion and action regarding sale of surplus vehicles per the district's surplus policy. And Damon is going to report on this.
Good afternoon, directors.
Good afternoon.
The purchasing, how are you? Good. The purchasing policy allows for the public auction or trade-in of district vehicles 120,000 miles or over. And so we have a list here of 10 vehicles, 4 of which are over 200,000 miles on their odometers, and we would like to surplus or trade them in, depending on which would be more lucrative for the district. So we were seeking a resolution and approval from the board to do so.
How do you determine their, the value being greater if a trade-in?
Well, so it's, I don't know, it's kind of interesting. When we bring vehicles and equipment to public auction, we often greatly exceed any blue book value for the sale. And so if a vehicle that has 250,000 miles on it, that's 15 years old, blue books for $2,000, it's not unheard of to see it sell for over 4, almost 5. We were quite surprised when we put equipment to public auction, I want to say the year before last, on some of the prices and how high some of the items went for sale. And so that would most likely be the way that we would go about selling these. So whether or not we would presume that they would, you know, like I said, a 15-year-old vehicle with blue book for $2,500, if we can put it on public auction and get $5,000 for it, we're going to do so. However, trade-in provides us the flexibility to push that money back towards the capital outlay vehicle program. So that is why we would look at that. And generally through enterprise, they're going to look at blue book. So we're not going to see as great.
Is
a return
there,
on that.
I mean, I know it's been a while since I've, you know, covered this, but is there, do we just send it to an auction yard, or do we list them at a minimum, say, we list them at the blue book minimum for auction?
How does that work, Mike?
We put them on public surplus and we put a minimum of like, they'll tell us to put a reserve of like $2,500 depending, just to get people to get in. I've never, they've always exceeded value on this public surplus. Most of these trucks are not usable. They're gutted parts. They don't run. Most of them get picked up out. You can't even sell them inside of California because of their regulations. So they get purchased like in Idaho, Utah. Most of them get purchased there at the price of used trucks right now is really high.
Yeah.
So we usually exceed the value really good by putting them on public surplus if they're sold nationally.
Because I looked at a couple of these and, you know, 2008 and 2010 with 155 or 163 doesn't sound bad to me at all.
Somebody out there is going to snatch that up quick. I can
Uh-huh,
tell you that.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh-huh.
I think we ought to keep that one with 250,000. It's obvious. It's It's a good runner.
Are there any diesel on this?
There's some O-ring diesel on here, they're got a 6.4 engine and.
Get rid of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Right away.
those are like the first ones on the list that get out of here.
Yeah.
One of the questions I had was, it says the funds received from this surplus sale, it goes to the general fund. Does that mean it really goes back to the purchasing new vehicles and equipment?
So
Line
in,
item?
in the policy, if the district has documentation of which fund originally purchased the vehicle, we trade it in, we can use that value to go towards, is that how that works?
Yeah.
Come on up.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is I'd like to see if this was vehicle sales or equipment sales, it should go back to that same offset the expense.
We'd like to, I think in the policy though, it has it going into the general fund.
Can we make a change to that?
I would love to. We were talking about today. I'd like to rewrite the policy so we can I have 10 trucks that have over 200,000 miles on it. I got 15 trucks that are between 100 and 150 and 6 that have between 100. We bought 6 trucks between 2008 and 2016. I don't know if it's because the economy went down,
Yeah.
but we don't have
Could-
any 2014 trucks. We don't have any 2015 trucks. We don't have any, I think we have a couple 2013s. We have a real lull right there at vehicles where everything is 2008 to, 644 engine
Could
Fords that have
we-
already blown up or they're gonna blow up.
Yeah.
And
So, but could we take no action today, and can you bring it back? Is it that quick that you could rewrite a certain portion of the policy to help get what you want and then bring it back next meeting and then we can?
Well, so my recommendation would be to surplus them, and then if we can take a look at the policy and change
Yeah.
where the funds go. But it wouldn't change the action for the board today.
Yeah, that would
Okay,
be.
I just would like to see them go to what you're talking about, the
Yeah,
funds. If we
for
can
this-
make that. then I
Yeah,
would
we-
make that motion.
I mean, we were happy to work on that and provide some recommendations, track changes to Jeff and Michael to review. But for the vehicles on the list currently, they're in the yard at the warehouse and.
Get rid of them.
I just wouldn't want to see, okay, we're gonna get 15 grand and say, okay, we're gonna use it over here for something that might be a want instead of a need.
Yeah,
But I had a question back to the statement you made about when we originally purchased it from a whatever fund. Don't we have one fund where we purchase trucks?
Now we do. I think we buy them all through a capital outlay fund, but I'm
Yeah.
not sure what they did in 08,
Oh.
06, and 03. And the reason why we should surplus them is because they're all gonna be right here. And there, some of them, we took the engine out, we've gutted them, they don't have, I mean.
Just to let the board know, I had one of those 08 6.4s, and I had 71,000 miles on it, and coming down from Murphy's one day, the engine froze up.
Oh.
And I got the bid to put a new motor in that one was $19,000. It was a nice truck.
Mhm.
Yeah, we like to get rid of those.
Yeah, even my Dodge, I just put a new motor in my Dodge and it was 14,000.
Michael, can I make a motion to approve this, but have the funds go back to the purchasing of vehicles for
So-
this particular scenario?
I'd be cautious about that just in case the policy is conflicts with the motion. So I think just surplusing them and then we'll look at the
Oh, okay.
policy
I don't-
And you'll tell us where you're gonna put
Yeah.
it next meeting?
bring the policy back if it needs to be amended.
There may be other things that we need to look at find out if there are any specialized funds that are going into the general fund that we should keep separate.
Right.
Maybe not just trucks.
Jeff
I'll
would
make
like
a
to make a
motion.
comment as well. Jeff
Oh, go ahead.
is online.
Who's that?
Jeff Meyer.
Oh,
Good afternoon, board members.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Hold on, Jeff, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. In reference to the policy which states all revenues will be considered general fund revenues, most of the financing for all the trucks are general fund revenues. And they have been for a number of years. When we mean general fund revenues, that's a water fund, the sewer fund, and even some of our reserve monies. So that's the purchase of these vehicles does come from general fund. Now, when we look at budget and we understand that we may get 15,000 that we can possibly set aside those for future purchases. It just, we don't have a vehicle replacement fund. Now, if there's a vehicle replacement fund, we could probably redirect funds into that, but maybe that's something we'd want to look at along with this policy.
I'd like to see that. I mean,
Yeah. I
why
mean,
not
there's-
put that there for vehicle replacement if you
There-
need that replacement?
Yeah, so there's a policy 5918, and this is the one that I asked you for help on earlier. But it basically says if vehicles sold through a contracted vehicle leasing company, the proceeds can be used to offset the cost of any
Perfect.
future purchase. So that's where I see an opportunity here to provide some recommendations to Jeff and Michael to give the
Perfect.
district flexibility for that.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion to accept the surplus of these items presented here today.
Okay, before we act or get a second on that, do we have anybody else online that wants to comment on this? Okay, do we have a second to that motion?
Okay, I go ahead and second, and then I have a question.
Go ahead.
No, and so it sounds like, we have all kinds of funds going out there. Can't we try to streamline it, or are we working on streamlining truck purchases?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
I think between Jeff, Michael and myself and Mike Crank and our team, we will absolutely make sure that everything's streamlined, efficient.
We're not buying trucks anymore.
No, not
No.
currently.
No, but it just sounds so, so
Yeah.
complicated.
And I think we all understand kind of the objective would be really nice to be able to say, hey, through a public auction, we made X dollars and we were able to make a purchase that saves us in the future on
One of
capital.
these vehicles 25 years old. Who knows where? There's some shady stuff going on.
One concern that I have too is in 2027, we can't buy a gas or diesel vehicle here. It has to be electric, and they don't have a truck capable.
That's another story. Yeah, another story.
Okay,
Oh, man.
all right, let's come back to reality here. We have a motion and a second. Would you please poll the board?
Director Cicada,
Yes.
Director Davidson,
Yes.
Director Underhill,
Yes.
Director Thomas.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to 4D, discussion and action regarding awarding and authorizing a construction contract for the Jenny Lynn Water Treatment Plant Filters 1 and 2 rehabilitation. Damon, you're going to talk about this as well.
Yes, I am. Thank you, Vice President Thomas. So the Jalen Water Treatment Plant has 6 filters. Filters 1 and 2 have been failing. So what that means is the filter media has been escaping, for lack of a better term, the actual filter tank and showing up in the clear well and showing up in analytical equipment. So that tells us that there's breakthrough in the under drain system, the system that collects the water and conveys it out to the storage into the community. So in last year's budget cycle, we budgeted $450,000 to go ahead and rehabilitate filters 1 and 2. We put that project out to bid and we received one proposal from a company who has done significant filter rehab work for us in the past, but that proposal was over $900,000. And on a detailed review of the proposal, it's related to the fact that these under drain systems, which are called laser shield systems, are complicated, well, not complicated, labor intensive to remove, and they need to be removed in order to facilitate the effective rehabilitation of both filters. So the staff brought this to the engineering committee at the last engineering committee meeting, and we talked about we looked for concurrence to complete the objective before you now, which is a request to go ahead and approve a contract to rehabilitate both filters, but complete one of those work efforts in this fiscal year, and then the remainder in the next fiscal year.
What's it cost to replace instead of rehabilitate?
That's a great question. So we added a redundant filter at the West Point Water Treatment Plant, and just the filter without any of the appurtenances was just at $800,000. So without install, without labor, just without the valves. So
Should it be considered to maybe go back and see if you replace, because you said that filter system's labor intensive to replace the whole filter system, or we're talking millions?
It's gonna cost much more to
Then,
put a brand new one in. Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, I would love to, but,
Yeah, I mean, the total cost of the West Point filter project is over 2, right?
correct. Yeah,
And that's a smaller filter
Okay.
than we'd be talking
Yeah.
about at Jimmy.
yeah.
When we talked about this at the engineering committee, it was made clear to me that at the end of this thing, it would be like a brand new filter.
That's
anyway.
correct.
So it's,
Yeah, they sandblast it down to bare metal, they recoat, and then they put in the previous design for the under drain system, which is much easier to operate and work with in the future.
how long is this supposed to last, this rehabilitation? What's the life expectancy of it?
That's a great question. So the filters were installed in Jimmy Lind, early 2000s.
Probably before that.
In the 90s, I think, yeah.
The first rehab was in 2006, 2005.
But the company that's gonna do the rehab, what, did you ask them, what's the life expectancy of this $906,000?
I don't know if we've directly asked them, but I can tell you that we're essentially making the filter brand new again. And so I would
Could
venture
you
to guess.
ask them? I mean, to
Sure.
me, it would be warranted, say, okay, we got 15 years or whatever that magic number is.
Well, my thought would be at least 25 years for the filter itself. The media, generally, the rule of thumb is you replace filter media every 12 to 15 years. And that's, I mean, you just take the filter media out, put new media back in, but the under drain system, the recoat, the sandblasting, the valve replacement, that is, I mean, we should receive at least, or achieve at least 25 years of life out of the filters.
Well, that's what you're expecting. So I would, in the contract, make sure you ask them something.
Will do.
Excuse me, we went through this at Evans Pass. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
same company.
yeah. Oh, okay.
Same-
And that's all working really well?
Uh-huh,
Great.
Perfect,
uh-huh,
perfect.
okay.
Yes.
any possibility you could buy stock in this company?
Not yet. I don't know if they're gonna go public just yet.
I'll make a
Okay.
motion to approve. Item 4D.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there anybody online that would like to comment on this? Nope. Okay, would you please poll the board on this?
Director Cicada,
Yes.
Director Davidson,
Yes.
Director Underhill,
Yes.
Director Thomas.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to reports. 5A, report on the January 2023 Operations and Engineering Department. Would you want to take a break?
Yeah. This is the fun stuff.
Right.
So,
All fun stuff.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. As you all know, it was quite a boring month of January for most of Calaveras County. And so in consideration of the fact of what our communities went through, and recognizing President Ratterman's request at the last meeting, there will definitely be an after action report for the board relative to the atmospheric river storms that had such a profound effect, particularly on the folks in Rancho, but all over the county. And so I do touch upon that a little bit in the ops report, but really this is mostly focused on operational issues. So let's dive right in. Is it going? So if you all don't know, we have a new, in recognition of the fact that Tony Atnip retired, we have a new distribution system operator, senior operator, Doug Turner up in West Point. And so we have some fresh pictures of work efforts in West Point. Here we have service line repair at meter manifold. You can see in the image on your left, some spray coming out of the connection of the tough tube piping into the, what looks like a T, going over to the other meter box. And Doug has, here's another repair, full circle clamp on the service line of the Christmas tree lane. And what's really great to see is the fact that Doug is locating some ancient district infrastructure under 8 to 10 inches of buried debris in the name of valve boxes. So the more valve boxes that we can locate that might have been buried in the past, the better. And this allows the district to make more effective operational adjustments. If we have to shut a system down, we don't have to go 500 feet back to the next valve because Doug found this valve. Some of these are guard valves for fire hydrants, which is excellent. You know, if somebody hits a hydrant on the side of on the edge of the highway, now we can go effectively shut it down, and we don't have to go shut, half of the community down to reestablish the fire hydrant. So good on Doug. The warehouse is looking great. He's organizing everything and just hit the ground running. So really happy with the work that we're seeing up there. Hats off to him. Joe Darby and his crew up on Ebbets Pass. Excuse me, a couple identical almost service line repairs at the main. So this looks like the flare or the tap into the main is leaking, and you can see the quick connections in the tough tube there on the right, and the new cork stop with the new pipe dope around the connection on the coupling on the water main. It's almost the exact same issue happened on Avery Sheep Ranch Road. So Doug and his crew were able to get in there and make that repair.
Excuse me, I have a question. When you make the repairs, are you looking to downsize the pipes? And, because that's what it looks like here.
Generally, no.
No?
So usually, I think it might be an optical illusion. But generally, we're going to try to just keep it the same. And if oftentimes what'll happen, well, hopefully not often, but sometimes what will happen is we'll have to put a full circle repair clamp on the main that has a tap connection, because those threads might not necessarily be usable anymore into the actual main. And so sometimes you might see a repair clamp with a new corporation stop.
Okay.
But
That's what we did.
yeah,
Some using existing repair plans and just out with new hard stuff. That's pretty simple.
yes. If we can reestablish the corp, we will, but if we have to, yeah, we will tap it and put basically put a full circle with a tap on it, a tap saddle on it. This has been one of the work efforts that our electrical crew have been engaged in, which is flow meter verification. So this is Hunter's Water Treatment Plant verifying the flow accuracy of 1 meter with that of another. We're finding some interesting results. For the most part, all of our meters are reading very accurately. Here's the bucket truck in
There's
action.
Cindy, yeah.
We got to get this, we got to get any picture we can of this bucket truck in operation. You can see, so this was the temporary AMI setup on a temporary take at Flume Court that we recently took down and reestablished on the permanent tank. So the bucket truck was, once again, called in to run the ball across the, into the end zone. And so excellent job there.
Like lights and sirens for that.
Uh-huh.
Yes, yeah.
People
You know-
know when it's coming down the road.
Yeah.
Next parade, maybe I should be in the bucket.
That would be great.
That's where they
You
want to
gotta-
put you.
you gotta definitely have to be in the cab.
Exactly where they want you.
And here's some more flow meter installation. So this is a kind of an example of workplace ingenuity. In the picture on the left, you can see there's a magnetic flow meter that is flanged. It's hard coupled into the pipe. Well, it died, and we needed to understand what the backwash flow was. So our electricians were able to put a full circle clamp flow meter on the pipe and then run it to the meter readout, basically, which displays what the gallons per minute are, and set that on a good old fashioned barrel, plastic barrel, and run that information into SCADA, because the treatment plants need to know how much water is returning from the backwash system, because there's a regulatory limitation on how much can be returned at any one point in time. So hats off to their ingenuity yet again. Excuse me. Let's see here. Here's a troubleshooting and repair of a motor operated valve at the Copper Cove reclaim plant. So this is an electrical and a mechanical effort. So the electricians came in and troubleshot all the inputs that I look at that and immediately want to just pick up my cell phone and call somebody. And then that ties right into our mechanical crew going out and pulling off an actuator with the crane that's on a mechanic's truck. There's their infrastructure in action, and then replacing and rehabbing that actuator.
You guys do it,
Yeah,
you have all the time. Pretty good.
yeah. And then, and here's the mechanics in action on an alternator on a generator. So I mean, they're just kind of jumping from all kinds of different work. And, see this next one. Yeah. And so this is Meadowmont Pump Station pump head pull. So you can once again see that crane in action. It's pulling that pump and its pump head. If you all recall, this has been a over some years project where we are replacing the high pressure, replacing this pump head with a high pressure pump head. And that pump head is the blue part of the pump on the image on the right. And so what happens is when these pumps shut off, they shut off against a closing valve, and the pressure can often get up above 550 PSI. And the metal of the original pump head wasn't designed for that. And so some years ago, a portion of that pump head just plumb broke off. And so we went through and replaced the pump heads with high pressure pump heads, and this is the last one. So our mechanics pulled the pump and head and then shipped the pump head off to be, or the pump itself off to be replaced with a new head. And that's what a pump can looks like. So that pump can is between, I don't know, probably 10 and 15 feet deep. And that's where the bowls of the pump, that shaft sit inside of that. And then the water is conveyed through that pump can. And the pump grabs all that water and circles it up the bowls and then pushes it out into that pipe.
So this crane is situated so it's dropping down through the roof. Was there an opening for that, or did you have to make one?
No, there are openings. Most all of our pump stations have open skylight hatches that we can open to remove pumps. Yeah.
You replace the gaskets on the big hollow cup?
We will, yes. And yeah, yep, absolutely. And here's a depiction of replacing a motor on a pump. So this is at the Larkspur pump station where a motor failed and had to be replaced. And then this is electrical working in concert with mechanical to reestablish that motor on that pump shaft.
That ridge beam, is that a wide flange metal beam?
I am not sure. I believe it is. Yeah, because it looks like it. Yeah, I believe.
Did you check the calcs on that?
Did not torque that one. No.
But as you can see in the picture, we verified it's strong enough.
Yeah. That motor's got to weigh about 1,000
It's a heavy
pounds.
motor, yeah.
Yeah, more than that.
Yeah, it's not too light. Then the next image is kind of ties into some of the challenges that we had during the atmospheric storms. This is the effluent pump station at the Arnold wastewater treatment plant. And the pump station found itself having a hard time keeping up with the influent flows and was having trouble discharging out into the leach field and up to through the filters and up to the tank. And so one of the ways that we can reestablish that flow is to reverse flow water through the check valve to kind of clean out any debris that might have accumulated and reestablish the flow and purge any air that might be in there. And the check valves that lived here before were flap checks, were old, and took a long time to dismantle them in order to be able to back flush them. So the construction crew worked with our mechanics and with the operations team to install new check valves. And then the image on the right shows some of the fabrication work that our mechanics did in order to fab up a kind of a support so that the force with which those pumps operate doesn't push or undermine the piping as it's discharging, because it immediately discharges from the pumps and then goes right into the ground. So we don't want to rock that pipe forward. We're going to install a support so that it keeps everything nice and rigid. So those are couplings. So those are what are called Hymax couplings.
Oh, hi, next.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the little tiny speck of lighter blue in between is the pipe.
Yeah, okay, got it.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yep. And so here we dive into some of the atmospheric river storm issues. This is, so if you all recall, FEMA paid us in 2019 to re-rock and grade the road to our Indian Rock waste facilities, and they were all damaged in the last round of storms, and that is included in our initial damage assessment that we sent into FEMA. And this is an image on the left. You can see kind of some of the ruts into the actual east field, I believe that is. And some images of Cosgrove, and then the drainage. I'm not sure what that one is off the edge of Berkesee there, but Berkesee is the image on the left. And then Cosgrove is the image on the right, and a little depression in between the oak trees.
It's Indian Creek.
That's what I thought, yeah. So we're looking. Yeah,
That's still Indian Creek, you said?
Yeah, all
The
that.
Berkesee and.
Berkesee's Indian Creek, yeah.
Okay.
And then that dark depression in between the branches in the image on the right is a manhole. Let's see here.
And the manhole is in the street.
The manhole,
No,
that
it's in the
manhole is
middle of the
in,
river.
yeah. Yeah.
It's this picture.
Yeah.
It's,
But that's
that's a picture I wish I could
Yeah,
see.
it became a river, yeah.
Right.
All that water used to run through my property. That's, 3 houses on Indian Creek.
Oh, wow.
Every once in a while, it get a little scary, but never got in or anything.
Right. The image here on the left is Canyon Rock Road. This was some of the mutual aid work that our crews did. So they worked with CCWD and UWPA to provide assistance in some of their issues that they experienced during the atmospheric river storms. So while our crew was out, our construction crew, hats off to Roger Tyndall, was working with UWPA out near Candy Rock on their canal. He went ahead and regraded and reestablished this road that had some issues. And then for CPUD, they have this pump station on the South Fork of the McCulmy River, where we went down with equipment and helped to reestablish the intake to their pump station because it was inundated with debris and material. So that's the image on the right.
That's an unusually wide grading bucket for that. I don't know whether that's an excavator or backhoe or what, but can you tell me about that?
Yeah, I did not ask our guys directly why they used that bucket. My thought would just be so that they could get more material. It's like a big basin, if I could describe it. So it's just this big collector, almost like a giant rainy well that collects water into this pump station, and it was just full of rocks and debris. And my thought is just so they could simply grab more material.
But do we own that bucket?
Yes,
Yeah.
plus it swivels.
Hmm.
So
Oh,
they
got
can
it.
do Angles and stuff with it.
Gotcha.
Very
And
handy.
here's some drone footage. So this is the Hunter's Water Treatment Facility on the left. And then the Hunter's Reservoir in the image on the right. And
That's
that
pretty
blue
cool.
building is our Hunter's pump station.
I bet it's clean now.
Yeah. And Dylan Cuneo, hard at work.
Dylan. A question, the definition of atmospheric.
Yes, so I'll give you mine and then I'm gonna hand this over to Michael. So the way I understand it is the literal river in the sky. So the amount of precipitation is so great that it is literally, it's essentially a river.
It's a great question. I don't know we'll follow up with you on that. I don't know the technical definition of what qualifies as an atmospheric river versus just a big storm. But I can tell you that some of the atmospheric rivers of the 9 that we had in January, some of them were equal to the quantity of water of the Mississippi River at its mouth.
Ow.
So they're big rivers. And drop-
Because if we can use that word again next winter, that's, because it's
It's-
just so
Yeah, it's
Overwhelming.
definitely come into greater use, I think, over the
I
last
use it
few years,
all the
and
time.
now it's.
All it did is replace the Pineapple Express.
Right. It's the same thing as a Pineapple Express. Yeah. I now just associate now that in my mind, the Pineapple Express is just a particularly warm atmospheric river. And so. Which
So
is,
now we have
one of the things.
atmospheric rivers.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay,
I don't have a rain gauge out at where I'm building the house, but I had the equivalent of one that was like a wheelbarrow, sitting up. I know they're supposed to be sitting on their side, but it was sitting up and it filled up overnight.
Yeah,
And,
oh, yeah.
and then I'm thinking, okay, well, this whole area out here, if it got 8 or 9 inches of water consistently distributed through that whole valley, I mean, that's hundreds and hundreds of acre feet. I mean, maybe thousands or so. It's just
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Well, I think Hogan, I mean, anecdotally speaking, I think Hogan was at 19% towards the end of December. Towards the end of January, it was at 73%.
Did we ever do a calculation of the acre feet that flow in? I mean, for instance, if the dam wasn't there or if they weren't managing it, I mean, how many acre feet, if it wasn't managed, would run through that?
Right.
Oh, we know the flow.
We do. We could look
You can do the calculation,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, so
It'd be
the
interesting
intake-
To know,
It,
because the capacity is what, 311 feet, at Hogan.
Right.
Interesting to know how much falls in that watershed, or at least, comes down the Calaveras.
I mean, we know that the inflow to New Hogan peaked at 25,500 CFS. And if that had made it past the dam, that level of flow, I mean, we had concerns at the Jenny Lind treatment plant in 2006, the district was concerned at 10,000 CFS.
Yeah.
And so at 25,000 CFS in the Calaveras River, we would have major problems at Valley Springs
Well, and Stockton.
and downstream.
Mhm.
That's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
and all the communities.
I mean, I just, there's
We
so
only
many
care about
questions
Valley Springs,
why-
but sure, it would happen.
There's so many
downstream.
questions about why we don't store more water, but it would be good to have, some data to say, hey,
Mhm.
look, in this last storm event, the Calaveras River in Stockton would have inundated, and I know they have that, maybe the Corps would have that kind of information, but it'd be nice to.
We know how much they captured
Mhm.
over the course of January. We know they went above their COPA conservation, the water consumption amount for carryover storage. So they absorbed a tremendous amount of the flood water that was in the creek or in the river, and will gradually reduce it or release it over time.
Did do one calculation of how much they released within a week at like 5,000 CFS, and it was 44 years worth of treated water at Jenny Lind.
Oh. David, I have a question.
So 44 years of treated water, I could do the calculation.
I have a question on page 12 of your 12 pages of
Yeah.
recap. The last page talks about 12 services on Baldwin that were replaced.
Mhm.
What constitutes the replacement of a service? That's the service line just from the main over to the meter?
That's correct. Yep. And some of these, I'm not sure about everyone on Baldwin. Some of these would be a manifold to 2 meters. So
Oh,
one
okay.
serves to 2 meters. Yeah. And so this is part of the utility or the underground crews work effort is just the wholesale replacement of service laterals. Baldwin is a particularly leak prone part of
Yeah.
the Rancho system.
yeah, we know Baldwin,
Yeah.
don't we, Jeff?
But
Just, my calculation is that that's 145,000 acre feet. I do like 44 times 3,300, which doesn't count. So that lake would have spilled,
Absolutely.
yeah, because it was 160 in it,
Mhm.
something in it now.
Mhm.
Oh, more. It's over 200 now.
Is it?
Yeah. I can.
Okay, but we have 2 underground crews now, with the one that we've put on when we were talking about the Poker Flat problems over there. Have we ever gotten back to Poker Flat or still?
Not
waiting-
yet,
Still
no.
waiting for PG&E?
Well, so we're kind of compelled to go there. We're gonna have to go. PG&E is not cooperative. And moreover, in the Big Trees Village neck of the woods, PG&E and CCWD exist in the same trench also. And
Yeah,
we've
right.
had some issues there recently with some of our service line failures and the safety of our folks because of the proximity. But I digress. We're gonna have to go back to Poker Flat independent of PG&E removing or relocating their infrastructure and start to replace service lines.
Okay, well, if you recall, I mean, we met with their,
Mhm.
with their board and made promises and stuff.
Mhm,
So
yeah.
if we haven't been able to get back there, are we communicating with them to talk about what challenges have been? So,
Absolutely, yeah. We actually brought the HOA into conversations with PG&E,
Oh,
which was very interesting. And then we've had meetings with them since that time and let them know that we're gonna just proceed, you know, and they kind of at their request, we said, hey, we have some options here. We can keep pushing with PG&E. We can work towards a replacement. And if so, would you guys like us to just start in one certain area? Would you guys like us to start from one side and work towards the other? And their request to us is just come in, tell us where you want to start and just get rolling. And we're going to work to accommodate whatever you need. We just have this window with which we can kind of get as many things done as possible, meaning with our Copper Cove lift station project and service lateral replacements and lift station rehab, so that when it's all said and done and they want to come in and repave or resurface their roads, we're not going to go, hey, by the way, we didn't finish this section. So that's really the end goal. And so right now we're in lockstep with them, communicating closely, but we haven't started replacing service laterals yet.
How about the work that Mazingo is doing? Are we, are some of the places where we need to do service line repairs, is that along the same alignment?
So yes, so this is where it starts because it won't necessarily, it'll cross Mazingo's alignment. So we'll have service lines that will cross over the force main installation work that's going to happen. But that's really where we're at now is Mazingo has started in Poker. They started this week. And so really on the water side, now it's our turn to come in and identify those opportunities where we can just jump in without being in their way and replace. Yep.
Okay, and the sensitivity that I remember that they were expressing at the HOA was the getting their roads rehabilitated. And it seems like to me that if they're doing cutting and pipe installation and backfilling and temporary asphalt patch or whatever, we ought to be doing our work there. And I hope you coordinate with them.
Absolutely. Yep. It's a challenging job because the streets are small and there's a lot in the ground. But yes, so we have the challenge is jockeying the amount of folks crews that are actually working without resulting in just a wholesale closure of some portions of the street. So it's quite a dance, but yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Does that conclude your report?
That's it.
Any other
Thank you.
questions for Damon?
very nice. No, I'll just come under director's comments.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Do you have a report for us?
I do. Are you surprised? And this is so great. The technology today. Ralph got to live stream us and we have staff listening in from remotely. I just got a text message from Kelly with the current storage in New Hogan's 170,482 feet. But it was up over 220 at one point. So they've gradually brought it back down to 170.
Very cool.
So things are happening fast. Yeah, I do have some updates. One is we're coordinating with the Cal-Am team again. If you remember, that is led by Pat McGreevy and Jan Bray, who volunteered their time to do a tremendous amount of work on coordinating forest thinning projects and doing the environmental review, getting the grants through the Forest Service or the Sierra Nevada Conservancy, none of which is easy work. And they do a phenomenal job of it. They were responsible for us getting the grant to clear the 91 acres or thin the 91 acres at our wastewater treatment plant in Arnold. And they have recently requested that we serve as the fiscal agent for a larger project at Dowd's Landing, which is near McKay's. So it'll help protect some of our critical infrastructure in addition to the surrounding communities. They make it very easy on us. There's not a huge amount of work for CCWD. They do the bulk of the work, and we just serve as the lead agency and the fiscal agent. So we're working with them on that project. We'll probably have a resolution before the board in March. Once that moves a little bit further along to formally submit the application to Sierra Nevada Conservancy. So that one's moving forward. Let me know if you have any concerns about that. We can talk offline. It's not agendized today, but we're currently working with them on that effort.
You'll talk to Pat about the impact that prevailing wage might have on his grant.
Yeah, actually I will. They have on the ground experience, obviously, with that. So, right now, just an enormous amount of work going into updating our capital improvement plan and evaluating early versions of the 5-year financial plan that will feed into the rate study. Jeff has been leading that effort, working with our consultant, but also can't say enough about engineering. For the last 3 years, there's been a tremendous amount of focused effort on identifying and prioritizing the most critical capital improvement priorities. And we've actually made headway. It's nice to finally be able to start crossing things off of that list as we work through really important projects. But we have a long ways to go, and especially over the last few weeks, Damon and Charles put a huge amount of work into updating that the CIP document that says going to feed right into the financial plan, which feeds into the rate design. There's we don't have, it would be way too early to give any sort of speculation or numbers when it comes to rates, but I can tell you that there's been multiple rounds of review to make sure that we're thinning that project list down to what's absolutely critical, actually probably beyond what's absolutely critical, because we're taking projects off that list that we're very concerned about, that we're going to have to go out and find other sources of funding for. But we're doing that so that when we bring it forward to the engineering committee next month, and to the full board in the form of the financial plan for the rate study, it will have been a thoroughly vetted list at that point. That's an understatement. And it's taking a lot of time and effort at this point. So that will continue. We'll have an update for the finance committee on that next week. And then the full board will start seeing updates on that as well. The external relations committee will have an agenda item on the public outreach plan for the rate study. So all of that really ramping up into full swing here. Let's see, along the public outreach line, we have a town hall coming up in Valley Springs the 16th, February 16th. So that's coming up very quickly, and in the evening in Valley Springs. So we're looking forward to that at
Rancho
Clubhouse. Yeah. We also have a meeting coming up with the Tuolumne County Water Agency, which is not TUD. It's the more of a water resources capacity. The board is the Board of Supervisors. And they've reached out recently just to have some discussions about shared interests and get to know each other. So looking forward to that meeting. I had a really, really good meeting with Craig Pedro, the current interim CAO, and he and I have been trying to meet one-on-one for a while now, and schedules never matched up until we finally met this morning and just had a really great conversation. And we've already set another meeting for next week for some follow-up discussion. I'm pleased to report that he's really done some important restructuring
Mhm.
and prioritization at the county. They've restructured how they report to what's now the CEO, used to be the CAO. They've done some really, I think, some really important strategic planning work among the board and the community. I think it all sounds like it's going in a very positive direction. And hopefully they'll have an announcement later this month on a new CEO to take that position. So
They're that close.
yeah, that's been a huge amount of his work effort, not just the facilitation of that process with the supervisors, but also the recruitment effort for his replacement. Let's see, where did I leave off here?
Before you go to
Sure.
something new, the interaction with the Tuolumne Board of Supervisors, when and where is that going to take place?
We were just emailing about that today. It's the 17th, I believe, here, and Scott's been involved in that discussion. So I think we're gonna have a follow-up discussion to see if another board member should be present at that meeting or not, but Scott's already planning on being there.
And it will be conducted during a regularly scheduled board meeting over there, or?
No, we're just gonna meet here. It's not
Okay.
with the whole board. It's just with two of their board.
Okay.
And two of their board members and their new general manager, who is somebody we're very familiar with, John Mills. So he's working with them right now.
John,
I think this is second or third time he's come out of retirement, probably.
he's the general manager of what?
Tuolumne County Water Agency.
Oh, okay. All right.
Um,
Well, just for what it's worth, tell Scott that I would like to attend that meeting, but
you know what? I anticipated that and I already told him.
okay.
So I expect he'll be reaching out to you on
Yeah,
that.
he won't have to go very far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see, where are we at? Oh, we talked a little bit about JPIA earlier. Hopefully Director Ratterman will be able to, I shouldn't say right the ship, because I think JPIA does a great job. But it's just the circumstances that they're in. I learned last week at the Aqua Board meeting that they are having to dip into their catastrophic reserves for the first time in 10 years, and that no agency will be getting refunds this year. And I think it's just due to a range of issues. I think, there was a big wildfire expense last year, even though it wasn't the most significant wildfire season we've had in recent years. The amount that ended up on, in JPIA claims, I think was higher than other years. So we're kind of bracing for the impact to premiums, but they decided they didn't want to raise premiums unscheduled, an unscheduled rate increase. So they dipped into that reserve, but they're going to have to make it up in future years. So. And then I think I mentioned at the last board meeting that Cindy was appointed to the governance committee at Mountain Counties Water Resource Association, and Scott has since been appointed as the president of the board of the Mountain Counties Resource Association. So great representation from CCWD among the leadership there, and I think we're working on a press release to celebrate that. There was an UMRA meeting last week, interesting discussion about PG&E and Project 137. PG&E essentially has created a separate subsidiary to take all of its non-nuclear assets, generation assets, including their hydro assets, including Project 137. So there'll be some interesting discussion around, figuring out exactly what, who the new ownership is. PG&E will retain a majority ownership of that portfolio, but there'll be, 49% going to other investors. And so I think that's in our interest to follow up on that. I think it's on the camera agenda for next week. And, we obviously Project 137 has a huge impact on Calaveras County, so we'll keep a close eye on that. I have to make sure I got through everything else first before we get to Jessica's last board meeting. So we're sad to see Jessica go, but equally excited about the opportunity to work with her at UPUD. I think it's going to be a great partnership. And I think I can confidently speak for everybody when I say that we're really grateful for the contributions that you've made while you've been here, and really happy for your next chapter. Extremely jealous about being able to walk to work to that list, and wish you all the best. So this is Jessica's last week.
Absolutely.
Good job, Jessica.
We'll miss you.
That was all I had.
I've got a question for you, Michael.
Sure.
We talked at one prior meeting about reviewing our records retention policy. Is there anything to report on that?
So I know we have made progress on it, and it's been through a couple of different revisions. Rebecca's taken the lead on that. So I'll have to circle back and see where we're at on that and bring it back to the board for. I think it'll probably just come straight to the full board.
In reviewing the minutes of the last couple of prior meetings, I made a note here that Jeff, Director Davidson, had requested a report on the Hogan's purpose and operations. That you touched on that again today. That can we expect to see something in writing on?
Well, so our thought was we were incorporating, that's part of the presentation that we're going to deliver at the town hall.
Okay.
And so I wasn't expecting to bring it back
No,
to the board.
that's the place we need to do it.
Right.
Okay. All right. We have board reports, information for future agenda items. Want to start off?
Do you want to start with me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I just I'll reiterate a comment I made at EPOC about the coverage by our field forces throughout the storms, the atmospheric problems we had, and the fact that they were on call 24/7 and 24. And they did do that on the weekends, and I'm just so proud of your field forces. Damon, if you'll please reiterate that. Okay, I was reading again your reports that you send in, and the electricians are really working. In one report, Damon, they were out on 44 calls. I took the time just to, it was just listed, and I counted 44 incidents.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it just highlights the integral role that they play in the operation of all of our infrastructure. Pumps have to operate, flow meters have to operate, treatment facilities, SCADA systems have to work. And that all revolves around our electrical crew, 4 guys. And they do excellent work. They're very talented, they're creative, and they're safe. And they get after it. So I appreciate that. I will convey the acknowledgement to them.
And one of them makes extremely good chili, but I'm gunning for him this
Oh,
year.
right. Yeah. Oh, you are. Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, one last thing that I wanted to comment is that you're talking, you show us pictures of how they've made modifications to whatever was broken or the modifications they've made. But it's just amazing to me how they can create a fix
Right, because not only do they have to know how to do their job, they have to know how the process works that they're trying to fix.
Mhm.
So, and by now, they all kind of know that, so they can say, oh, this needs to pump to that, or this needs to do this. And they can kind of just jump in quickly and see the issue, troubleshoot it and fix it. It's great.
And we don't want any of those fellows to leave.
No, we don't.
No, we don't.
No, we don't. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay,
So you're saying I should let him win the chili contest again? Fair enough.
Yeah, pretty quiet up on the hill and I'm good.
that's it.
Uh-huh.
Jeff, do you have anything? Okay, Director Cicada.
I have a couple of things. We do have the T-Stan IRWM on the 15th, but due to the Finance Committee being rescheduled, I'm not going to attend, but Russ will attend in my place. I'm going to be on vacation, leaving February 27th and returning, I hope, by the meeting March 22nd. So I won't be here for the
Oh.
first March meeting. I should be here in all the meetings this month.
So you'll be back by the second meeting in March?
That's the game plan, but we'll be far away. So if something comes up where I have to stay, I would probably stay and just let you guys know if I wouldn't be here. But as of right now, I am planning on being here 22nd of March for that ending vacation. And then, Kelly, you're still online, so maybe you can hear me. We talked a little bit about making the map for here, and anyhow, like when Damon, in your report, you're talking about Rancho, it takes me a little bit to figure that out. And I'm pretty sure that was Rancho Calaveras and Valley Springs area.
I get lost in region.
Yeah, and so but it's like when you call it Rancho and stuff, I don't know where that is. So those are the kinds of things that if it was possible to have on the map, and it might be too much, Kelly, but if you're listening, woohoo. Another layer maybe just for me digitally or something. And then as far as a couple of items for future meetings, whether it's here at this meeting or finance, the FERC update, and that's probably a closed session type thing, but I'd like to see what's going on with that before it's like, oh my goodness. And then I asked for this, I think, for the finance committee, and it might be a little bit out because we're busy with the rate study. But I'd like to know on the bond funding that we did. I'd like to know how much of it we spent, which project it went to, and the update on that particular project with, what the completion status
We
is.
track that on an ongoing basis, so we can absolutely report out on that at Finance Committee.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, just not all the time, but just I'd like to see where we're at. And then, yeah, that's it.
Okay, Damon, can we talk offline about the I heard from some people that live in Angels Camp about a spill on the 6 Mile.
Absolutely.
thing.
Yep.
Okay, and the other thing that I want to see how much support I could get for this suggestion, but on the agenda cover sheet, I know that this is pretty much boilerplate. I, for one, would like to see under this, the mission statement that parenthetically adopted on a certain date. I think it was March 19th, 2022, or yeah, it was 2022. I think it might plant a subliminal communication to anybody who's reading this agenda packet that this isn't it's not a 30, 40-year-old or 22-year-old mission statement.
Right. Yeah.
And then at some point, I mean, we spent so much time and effort on the strategic plan. There should be a continuous note someplace on this thing about how you can get to the link. I know we have the strategic plan on our website, but if some little verbiage, and you can talk to the wordsmith over here about how to do that. And I'm not suggesting that I can dictate to have this happen, but does anybody feel like that's a worthwhile effort?
You know, if you could just put a link on here, it takes you right to the page on the website.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Okay, but having that reference to the adoption date of
That's
that,
good, too.
I think that I'd like to see that, but
Why don't you put a link to that adoption date of a video of him talking?
talking about it,
You know, when you do adoption.
well,
It could
No,
just be
I
a
think
note
that's a great
that,
idea.
you know, to see the strategic plan that was adopted on that date. The title of the strategic plan includes, I think it's 2021 through 2026. So it's reflects that it's not, that it's current. So yeah, I think that's a great
Yeah, I
idea.
think the link is good and
Okay.
that date's good.
and final thing is, I'm happy to report that my 2,500 gallon water tank has been re-established on the concrete pad, and it has 1,000 gallons of water in it, so it's not going to blow away again.
Oh, so you think?
Unless there's a really big wind. But anyway, thanks everybody for enduring my wielding of the gavel today.
There's no process.
Yeah, there's no closed session today. So we're not gonna have a reportable action from the closed session, and we have the next board meetings will be February 22nd. Here, usual time, 1 o'clock, and Wednesday, March 8th, regular time, regular place. So with that.
I think Scott's gonna be a little envious. Your meeting was shorter than his, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's a half hour longer than it should have been.
But Jeff, doesn't Jeff have the shortest meeting you had?
I certainly strive to every time.
All
No,
right.
it was an
Good
hour.
job.
I don't know who did it, but it was an hour.
All right, well, with that, I'm gonna adjourn this meeting and thank you for attending.
Okay.
Michael, can I show you something right here?